Planning Commission meeting for January 23rd. First, we have to approve the agenda. So the Planning Commission is ready. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. Those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Any opposed? Agenda approved. Comments from the chair. Couple quick things. I wanted to remind everyone that we only have 4 people. We don't have everyone here tonight, but I want to remind everyone that in-person meetings are available if you want to go to City Hall and sit with Mike. And sometime in the near future, we should probably talk about how everyone feels about that. But we'll wait for the full group, or at least close to the full group, before we have that discussion. But I did want to make everyone aware that there's at least the option there that anytime you want, you do not have to do this by Zoom. You can go in and join Mike and participate there. And maybe more of us will do that in the near future. And also, it's kind of up in the air long term about whether the state is going to want or let us do this anyway. This being using Zoom for everything. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is I also wanted to give everyone a heads up that as we start to work on this Congress for New Urbanism report, and we start to and other things that come up for potential changes to send to City Council, that I'm hoping to delegate some of the work that's going to be involved with that. There's going to be outreach work. There's probably going to be some other things like maybe a letter to the City Council at some point explaining our points of views or the policy reasons for why we would like to do things. So as that happens, I'd like for us to spread out the work a little bit, because there's going to be a lot of it if we want to do this well. So just a couple of things coming up for us to talk about further in the future. That's all I've got. Does anybody else have any updates of any kind or anything they want to throw out there? Okay. I see that Maria just joined, so I will repeat the point that I made a second ago about, because since Maria just joined, I want her to be aware of the fact that it is possible to go into City Hall and join Mike and go to if you prefer an in-person format over Zoom, then that we all have that option. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that, and that we'll probably talk about it in the near future, whether what the group would like to do as far as in-person or remote participation in the meetings. But yeah, it's available for people to do right now. And that's all I've got as far as comments. The next thing on the agenda, unless anybody else has anything to share or comments, is comments from the public. I'm not seeing any members of the public at the moment. So we're going to breeze through that and get into the city plan webpage. So this is just a check-in to see where a couple of things are, the landing site and the review or review of the energy page and where those things are. And I take it, Julia, you are here to do that for us. So I will hand it off to you.
Yes, thanks for having me. Aiden wishes she could be here, but unfortunately she has COVID. So it'll just be me this evening. And she did fill me in on the discussion from last time about the landing page. And essentially today I'd like to review with you potential copy for the landing page, both the first page, homepage, that you might see logging on, and also the about the plan page. Right now, this is in a Word document form. And if this text looks good generally to you, then we can look at adapting it to the website and and cleaning it up that way. But first, I'll just share my screen and remind us all what the hub site format looks like. If I can find it in my oh, I see. The Zoom screen was just blocking it a little bit for me. Okay, I'll try that again. Great. Let me know if you can't see my screen. But this is just the hub site and how it appears when you first click on it. And right now, this has not changed from our last meeting, but this is a reminder of where we are. We have just some simple text about what this website is. And then scrolling down, there are the icons for each of the chapters. And then right now, the implementation information has a little home right here. So this is just keep this in your mind of how it currently is set up. And then we can compare that to the Word document. And if there are no questions right now about the way this is formatted right now on the website, I can start sharing the draft text.
Go for it.
Great. Okay. So essentially, I combined some materials that Kirby had prepared that I think you reviewed last time, and some materials that Mike had prepared. And I think both of these sets of text were really useful and helpful context for the plan. And they accomplished different things. Kirby's statement was more inspirational, talking about the city's values. And Mike's statement was more practical and explained the format of the plan, and would certainly be useful to somebody who's just looking to try to understand the contents of the plan and how it'll be used in the future. And then some additional notes about goals for this landing page. Definitely the about the plan page should explain why Montpelier chose to take this approach and have a digital city plan, a bit about the process, and of course, explaining the organization of the plan, particularly the implementation segments. So what I've come up with is text for the landing page, which is here, and then text for the plan description page, the About This Plan tab, which is, a separate tab on the website just below it. So first we can go through the landing page. And I think Mike may have sent this over just a few minutes ago, but of course that might not have been time to read this through fully. I won't read this through fully out loud right now, but I will just go through the headings and describe the purpose of this text. So the idea of the text of the draft text here is to have a first, inspirational statement or just topic sentence, if you will, for each section. And that can be broken up with pictures or those icons and other media that we describe here to still make sure that this isn't just a block of text on the landing page. There's a need to describe what's on the website and be thorough in that, but also make sure that we're not overwhelming visitors to the site with text and making sure that this is concise. So hopefully that this draft text threads that needle, but let me know if there's room for improvement there. So starting off at the top, Montpelier has a bright future. Open to suggestions on that statement, but I just wanted to start with something positive here that is very easy for folks to understand. And sets the tone immediately as a positive tone and forward looking. And then this paragraph goes on to explain that this city plan is addressing multiple aspects of the city: values, strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, and the most pressing issues facing the city: the housing crisis, climate change, and social inequities. These are pretty broad terms, but for an opening paragraph, I think they're all encompassing, but also get at some of the specific topics that are going to be addressed in the chapters. And then finally, the sentence describes that the plan is a roadmap. It sets a vision for a more equitable and sustainable Montpelier and provides a roadmap to achieve that vision. Let's just stop there. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Maria?
Could we scroll back down to Kirby's language from last week? I felt like it was a lot more engaging. Like to pull someone in who just kind of, just Googled Montpelier city plan. So I kind of like the way that Kirby had written it. It seemed less formal and just something that would engage a reader. And I think the information that you drafted after could come after, get into like more specifics, but I liked Kirby's language. That's
great.
So
Thanks for that feedback.
And then going back up to what you just showed us. Yep, here. Yeah, so I feel like if we have something that, like a short first paragraph that kind of just like lays it out there like Kirby did, and then kind of go into like the, city plan addresses Montpelier's most pressing issues. And then, I think you kind of added the correction when you read it out loud. You said like, the plan is a roadmap. Oh, the plan presents a clear vision. And I actually liked your use of the plan is a roadmap for explaining to people what this is and why we are doing it. So that the last sentence of that paragraph, I think if you could flip it around to say like the plan is a roadmap to achieve our vision for a more equitable and sustainable Montpelier. I feel like it's just like a very clear-cut explanation of why this plan exists and what it's supposed to do.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. I agree with that, with everything that you said. Does anybody else have feedback for right now for the draft landing language? Okay. Go for it, Julia.
Okay, so moving on, there's definitely we've heard a desire from this group to have some infographic materials on the landing page and show some of the data, most relevant data that will help kind of draw people in and help people learn something that they might not already know about this state of different issues in Montpelier, and also set the stage for how this plan will measure progress on those issues. So this next section, the topic sentence is Montpelier has made progress on key goals, but there is still work to be done. And then there's a short description there. But the main purpose of this section is to show this infographic. And one possible layout is to have a column on the left titled The Problem and a column on the right titled Progress to Date. And under the problem, there would be a statistic illustrating how Montpelier is experiencing a particular issue. So the number of individuals experiencing homelessness, or statistics related to greenhouse gas emissions, or the pandemic effects on the local economy. And then opposite each of those statistics would be an accompanying statistic about progress to date on that topic. So as an example here, for housing, on the left-hand column, there's a certain number of individuals in Montpelier experiencing homelessness. And then on the right-hand column, some statistic about the number of housing units that have been constructed in a recent time period. So the exact statistics here are certainly can certainly take different forms, and these are just ideas. I don't obviously have these statistics at the moment, but this could be a succinct way to show people some of the issues that this plan addresses, and then also get people thinking about some of the progress that's possible coming out of this. So any comments on that?
Yeah. So I would really like to get the planning commissioners to give some feedback right now for SC about the infographic question. My memory tells me that in the past, there's been infographics suggested for this page, and we've been open to that and fine. I don't know that we're, just to be clear, thinking that that's a huge important goal for us. If it's appropriate to have infographics, that it's nice to have those images that capture people's attention. But I just want to be clear that, like, I don't know, I think it's like aesthetics driven question, and it just kind of depends. That said, what planning commissioners, what do you think that if we are going to display something on the landing page, like a bit of information using an infographic, what are the key things from our city plan? What are the key issues we think that exist for the city that should be? I've got to say that I don't think we need a problem and a progress to date type thing. And I actually am a little bit scared of a progress to date type thing, because I don't trust that we are going to be super diligent and updating this all the time. So
that wasn't the that's not the intent here.
But so like a progress to date thing that's like statistics from like 6 years ago is like, I don't know, it kind of begs the question of like, why haven't they updated this? But so anyways, the infographics probably should say the date on them. I mean, just with that thought in mind. So like in 2023, we had statistic, blah blah. So I just want to ask the planning commissioners, like, what are the big things? I think housing is something that's come up a lot, and things about housing that we see. Like, for instance, I think one thing that came up last week, which is a huge issue in Vermont, and probably what's really a big issue specifically for Vermont. I'm going to stop short of saying nationally, and that's overhousing. That is a huge house with one or two people in it. Do we want an infographic that talks about that? I think Mike mentioned that he does have some data about that. Is that something that we would like to see on the landing page? What are people's thoughts?
Kirby, my thoughts are, if this is on the landing page, I think it should be a simple one that people can understand. Just like how many housing units have we added? And I do think that we can set it up to just auto refresh. I did contact Mike about the permit software they use, and emailed the developers of it, who I don't think gotten back to me as to whether or not they have sort of an API that we could just use so that Mike and his staff don't have to do anything different than they already do. That said, if for whatever reason they can't, or there is no way for me to hook into it, can set it up so that it could be extremely simple and easy for Mike or anyone to just, punch in either the number of permits or COs. We could also just grab the census building permits, assuming the city is already reporting to the census. Housing starts there. I could set that up to pull that up automatically, and that would be pulling from the same source. So I don't know, that's my thought. And like, if we have, even if it's just one, and if it's simple, and people can understand it, I think that would be helpful.
I think that's fine. With what I'm understanding is like something that's just like a graphic that says how many housing units were created in that year, in the current year, and setting it up in a way in which we can be certain that it will be updated every year. Is that what you're saying?
Or every month even. So yes, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. We could also include the census population estimates if we wanted. They aren't always necessarily the most accurate, but yeah, I guess we could include those pretty easily without too much work.
Okay, yeah, if you guys can make that happen, that would be good with me. So what do the other planning commissioners think of that idea? And also, do you have other infographic type ideas that would work for the landing page?
I just want to weigh in on the housing starts. I think if I was given how many houses were built or how many units were built in 2020, I would have no idea how to gauge if that was a lot or a little. Is there data, like historical data of how many houses were built over time? And I think that might be a more helpful infographic, I have no idea what that curve would look like. But if it looks like a lot of housing used to be built and now it has stopped, I think that would be a more, informational.
Or like a percent growth, which is kind of what you're like you think that would be helpful if it's like Montpelier had 0.5% growth in housing this year. Right.
Or even over the course of the last 5 years. Like, I don't know, what period you'd have to look at for that to, I mean, as someone who's lived here for the past year, has there been any housing built? There has. Okay.
Yeah, there's been some. Yeah.
It's somewhere.
There's been some, and I think you make a good point about the total number of units, because we're actually a pretty small town. So for like 100 units would actually probably be considered quite a bit for us. But I think maybe some people coming from bigger places would see 100 units and think like, oh my God, you're not doing anything. So so that's why, like a percent growth or just the raw number compared with total units or something. What do you think? What do you think between those two things? What do you guys think?
I think the total number over, the trend over time can help tell the story of how we're doing. And I don't know, we could chat with Mike about either the reliability or how far back we have data that we're comfortable with. Otherwise, there are other proxies we can use and then have the more recent years filled in.
Okay, I think that's a great idea, and I think that's something for Julia to look into as a specific area. Do we have any other areas that we think we want to call out for a landing page infographic that we think is, a crucial part of the story that's landing page worthy, I guess.
I'm not good with sort of infographics and what metrics we would use, but I still keep coming around to sort of, I think really the three core issues that we should be highlighting, not only on the landing page, but just as sort of the thread that binds the city plan is housing, economic/business development, and third, sort of transportation as a proxy for sort of infrastructure development and maintenance. And I just, I get sort of the proposals that are here for the infographics, but I just feel like homelessness, global warming, and pandemic, it's while they are important things, I think it's kind of heavy duty for a landing page for a city plan, those issues. B, they're just a little bit amorphous. I think if we can kind of collapse down to like really core, those three core issues that I think we hear from residents here time and time again about economic development, housing. And I think, I use transportation, but I think it's kind of I don't know how we get to sort of the issue of like, we're paving the roads, like we're doing those things that we're making sure the water system is functional, because I think especially recently there's some concerns about infrastructure. I throw that out I want to be very clear, like I don't know what metrics we can plug in and use as an infographic stat to point those things out, but that's just my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And, I wouldn't oppose housing, transportation, and economic development as being three things that are brought out. I know in our economic development chapter discussions, we did kind of pinpoint some areas that we thought were important. And John, if you could help me remember, because I remember you being part of those discussions. I mean, does this particular stat come to mind for you as an important part of economic development for us?
Sorry, what's that?
I was asking you, like, if you recall from our discussions about economic development, we had kind of narrowed down things we thought were going to be important. I almost need to just pull up maybe the plan and refresh my memory. I was just wondering, is there an important economic development stat based on our discussions? It's at the edge of my memory.
Yeah, I think we were focused on jobs, and to the extent that it's reported, we can get numbers on jobs that are, over over X dollars in terms of what that equates to for a monthly wage, or we were talking about like the quality of jobs, so that we just didn't want to measure an increase in low paying jobs as success. But yeah, sometimes simple is still good, and very few things tell an entire picture, and they're in and of themselves. So if we wanted to just measure jobs, we could do that as well.
Yeah, I think jobs. I'm gonna look real quick to see if I can remember specifically about jobs what we were talking about, and then let's just, going with Aaron's suggestion about those three pillars. What's the transportation area that we think would be an important thing to draw out on the landing page?
Yeah, that's the one, frankly, where I really draw a blank. I don't know how we can sort of convey.
Well, I think, I mean, we talk. I mean, where I would start thinking is we've talked a lot in the plan and just in the planning commission in general about walkability, about not having a vehicle-centric city. So, like a statistic about sidewalks or walkability, or
yeah, I mean, it could be, it could be just sort of. Again, I don't know how to convey this information, but the development of the bike trail, the sort of the amount of paving that's in repaving that's occurred in the last few years, you know, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because I feel like if we may be drawing attention rather to the problem as opposed to drawing attention to the work that we've done to solve it by having that on the landing page. But I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
I was thinking that I'm kind of thinking of it as like what chapters lend themselves to having stats and are more tangible. Like I think that was what Aaron was saying. Some of them aren't. Certainly those like housing and economic development certainly do. Transportation, struggling a bit, but maybe it's historical resources of more of an aesthetic issue than the other two, which are pretty, kind of substantive. Not to say historical resources is not important, but there are good stats on that. We have the largest historical district. There's 500 and something properties. I guess I don't know what the infographic would. I guess it would just be about the importance of protecting this historic nature of Montpelier. I think that's something top of mind for a lot of people in Montpelier too.
Yeah, that's a good question about is that something we want to focus on the landing page. It is certainly something we can brag about. Is that what we want?
My thought for the landing page is that we're trying to capture and get people interested, and so it doesn't. If we shouldn't try to bend ourselves over backwards. See, I think the infographics will certainly appear within each one of our story points. It doesn't end up with the what we're trying to do is to
Your audio is garbled, Mike. Yeah, your audio is still off. Is my audio working?
Yeah, you're fine, Kirby. It's just Mike.
Okay.
It was good for all those times.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's better. When you lifted it up, I could hear you.
Something like this is better.
That's a lot better. It's not perfect.
So I'll try not to move. So I was just saying, maybe we don't need to. The point of the landing page is to try to get people interested, and then kind of give them a quick bite of something to get them interested in looking farther. And so maybe that's an infographic, maybe that's not. The three big things are housing, sustainable infrastructure, and economic development. Certainly, the housing is probably the number one topic. If sustainable infrastructure, certainly from the council standpoint, would be a close second, and then whether it's economic development or environmental quality or something, I don't know, would be the third, but we can figure that out. But then whether it's maybe it's just a quick sentence, maybe it's a bullet, maybe it's an infographic, let's try to make sure we feed on goal, which is to get people to next, not to click on and start reading our story.
Okay.
I think I can jump in. Sorry, Mike. Your audio's better, but I think if you can hear my audio, I'll just paraphrase what you said, which is that this infographic on the landing page can be short and should just grab people's attention and give them a taste of what's in the plan. And that I think that we heard most of what you said, Mike, but just at the end there, you said that there will be other opportunities for infographics in the story maps. And I think that's important to keep in mind. So this infographic definitely doesn't have to say all that we want to say about data in this plan on this website. And and there are certainly opportunities to have other statistics represented for the topic chapters, but identifying the most important things, top of mind issues to highlight about the plan. So housing definitely should be there, is a good role for this.
Yeah. So Julia, I'd like to just for the sake of moving on and things, just like give you some direction, which is to say that what the Planning Commission would like to tell you is we'd like to see a housing infographic at this point. A place, there could be placeholders for now, because there's no reason to spend a bunch of time discussing this anymore because the point is taken that we're going to develop infographics for each chapter and we can pull from those later. So I think the only placeholder you need to say now is economic development, transportation, possibly natural resources or energy, and possibly historic preservation are going to be, what we plan to fill in later there, but we don't need to know exactly what it is. I think we did flesh out pretty well for you, like what we would like for the housing though. So that's kind of what we're asking, what we think would be best for this. And then from there, we can just move on and we can figure out the placeholders later.
Okay, great. That's helpful. So just to make sure that I understand that. So the housing infographic, we can move forward with that, with having the total number of units divided by the trend over time. Roughly, we can figure it out, how exactly that statistic will show up, and I can reach out to John about that. And then listed below it, just as a placeholder for now, economic development, natural resources, historic preservation, and transportation, and we'll figure out the exact statistics to be used there later.
And we don't necessarily intend for all of those.
Okay, but those are possibilities.
Yeah, those are possibilities. And I think what makes sense for, the aesthetic here, and for the storytelling aspect, it's like we don't have a set number in mind. Okay.
3 is a magic number, so I think 3 is good for presenting these statistics, and it shows 3 different topics can show the breadth of the plan. So that would be my suggestion, but we can look at it down the line.
Yeah. So go ahead, Julie, with the rest of it if there was more you wanted to show us.
Great. Okay, so moving on, this next block of text here is more involved with the purpose of the plan. So the topic sentence here is: the Montpelier City Plan identifies central initiatives for the city. And then this is short enough that I'll just read it. The plan asks and answers 3 main questions. 1, what should Montpelier's future look like? The plan identifies a common vision for Montpelier, a set of shared values and priorities that are characteristic to the Montpelier community. 2, how far are we from achieving our vision? Each plan chapter assesses existing conditions for a given topic. The chapters provide an overview of priorities, progress to date, important partnerships, and more. 3, what must happen to make our vision a reality? Each plan chapter provides a set of policy recommendations called aspirations, goals, and strategies that are intended to guide and direct city initiatives. And then there are just a list of links, places to learn more about some of the things that are referenced in this section at the bottom. Any comments on this section? Suggestions?
People feel okay about this as being part of the landing page?
Yeah. I think I'll really benefit from actually seeing it like laid out. I think that's going to inform, like, do we have too much text, or, what do we need to edit and move around? I think that's going to be, I don't know, for me anyway, see it laid out.
Mike, does this match? You can just give us a thumbs up or thumbs down considering your audio situation. Does this roughly match what you had in mind?
Well, I actually plugged in a speaker. Is it working, or a microphone?
That's great.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
They had a spare one, so it works. I wasn't 100% following because I was getting this set up, but yeah, I think that this lays out pretty good. Julie and I can probably work on this over the next couple of weeks to get something, as Brian says, we kind of need to see it on the page to see how it looks.
Okay. Great. So was there more, Julia, you wanted to show us?
Sure. So all that we've reviewed thus far is for the landing page, the very first home page that someone would see when they click on the site. There will be a second tab that people can click on to learn about the plan. So about this plan. And this is the section that explains the format of the document and the website, and also the aspirations, goals, and strategies. So this opening paragraph describes that the city plan is no longer a paper document and is summarized on the website through the story maps. It lists the 12 topic chapters, and there will be links to each of them. This next paragraph, I'd like to fill in, and I can coordinate with Mike to do this, to learn more about the engagement process and be able to summarize that in this paragraph. Then the final paragraph here explains the aspirations, goals, and strategies. This is directly taken, formatted from Kirby's and Mike's notes. And I provide an example of an aspiration, goal, and strategy for the historic resources chapter. This is just the first one that I pulled, but I'm happy to use another one that might be more representative. But it explains, I think it's just best to show an example here, because these three categories can seem very abstract, but looking at it as a whole, it's pretty clear how they all fit together. So.
I think if leaving an example there, maybe it would be helpful to put it into its own little gray box or like a box or something, just to show that it's like a quote box type thing, just to show that this is not actual content. This is an example.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody have any feedback for that part? Okay. So this is it for the about page.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's looking good. I think it's what we had in mind.
Yeah, I do just want to say one thing about the infographics, not to dwell on that, but just one note about it. I think the direction that we're ending up at makes sense to show the progress over time. And if live updating of the graphics is important, then we can certainly work to incorporate that. But I think it's also important for the plan to show where we are. And this may be more important for the infographics that we show in individual plan chapters. But it can be useful for the statistics used to indicate where we are as this plan is being developed. I totally understand the desire to have this web plan be a living document, but also those statistics that describe the current moment can be really useful in providing context for the policy recommendations. So that's just some food for thought as we look towards the statistics in the future. So now I'd like to share the energy chapter, which looks, this looks pretty similar to the previous version that we showed, but I'll point out a couple key differences. We're now incorporating more narrative right up front to try to draw folks in. So I'm curious to hear thoughts on this opening section, and maybe this time I'll just pause and give folks a chance to read this language. And I'm curious whether this you think this is an engaging start to this chapter, or if there are any other things that should be included in this opening section.
So my initial question for you is, are you getting some of the content from the chapter language that we provided?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My default is to adapt chapter language.
Great. That's good to know. Does anybody have any feedback for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I think it sets out, the scope of the issue, contextualizes it. I'm sure, at the end of the day, I think Brian's right. I think this is all going to be, it'll all be much clearer, and we can start kind of really getting down to brass tacks once we get sort of the complete set in front of us, so we can really go through it. I mean, there's no use in sort of wordsmithing stuff right now, but I think generally speaking, it's good. So.
Great. Okay.
So Julia, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but going back to the chapter language, which is something that we had worked on and voted out for each chapter. Like how much roughly how much is SE using those materials? Like should we expect like a lot of the same content, or do you see it being changed a lot, just so that we can set our expectations?
Yeah, I think it does depend on the chapter. Certainly some chapters are much longer. And so for those longer chapters, I find myself condensing a lot. And shorter chapters can be contained in full on a story map. So that's one thing to point out. I do capture at least something from every section of the plan chapter as it's written. There's several pieces of narrative in those plan chapters. For example, the overlaps between different areas of the plan. That's longer for some chapters than others. I do attempt to capture, every overlap, every other, plan chapter that's mentioned there. But certainly the language is condensed. So there are some sentences in here that are word for word, and then there are, some sentences that are really summarizing the plan chapters. So I wish I had a neater answer to that question, but generally I'm trying to preserve the meaning as much as possible. But a lot of times that does involve condensing this and summarizing it for the purposes of the story map.
Okay, yeah, that's great, and it's looking good. Mike, did you have any thing to say about this? Okay, all right. Well, thank you for the update. We appreciate it. Hopefully what you're hearing from us is cogent enough to let you know what we'd like. We mentioned infographics before. There was other feedback before about the intro language for the landing page, and it sounded like at least some of us prefer the attention grabbing stuff of the like draft that I'd given you. So I think we would prefer that.
Mhm.
But I think that's about it. Does anybody else have anything for Julia as far as feedback, or anything for us to be thinking about? Okay.
Nope.
So last call for that.
So we're going to have
All right.
about 3 weeks before our next planning commission meeting. So Julia and I are going to be working quite a bit over the next 3 weeks to start, because we're trying to get a template. We're trying to really refine that template so we can then build out the rest of the chapters quickly. Because once you have a template, it's easier to plug and play. So that's what we'll be working on is over the next couple of weeks, is to start to build some of these out now that we've got a better sense of the template.
That's great. And also, and I think I am speaking for, and please, planning commissioners, if you disagree with this, speak up. But I think that, we're okay with waiting a little while before looking at this again. Because I keep hearing over and over from people like, well, it'll be nice to see once we actually see like a prototype, like, fully fleshed out. So once, I think we're okay waiting until we have a bunch of chapters developed and the landing page is caught up to what we've been envisioning. So we can wait for a while is what I'm saying, I think, to review again. And when we do, hopefully there'll be a lot to look at. So I think that's our feeling about it.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Well, good luck and thank you so much. Thank you, Mike, for working so hard with them too.
All right.
Well, send our regards to Aiden to get better.
Thanks. Will do. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. Okay. We're gonna move on. So the next thing on the agenda is to review the public safety implementation strategy. So hopefully everyone got to take a look at those. I guess I'll hand it over to you, Mike, for you to go through what's there and let us know, what you're thinking about that.
All right. So while I'm bringing this up on my computer. All right, so I will share my screen. So we have a public safety plan. It's one of our big plans, one of our ones that kind of grabs a whole bunch of information. And so one of the last pieces that I've left, Carol is working on it right now with her board, is the restorative justice. So this piece is still being worked on. There's actually more information. She's got a separate document that she's been filling these pieces in on. So we can kind of skip through this one. But restorative justice is one of the pieces of public safety. And then really quick, it's police, fire, EMS, emergency management, dispatch. I think that's all of them. But if you go through, you'll see, and most of you are used to seeing all of these in the Excel format, and I haven't done the cut and paste. So at a certain point going forward, I've been trying to finish up community services. And so that's the one I'm working on right now. But at a certain point, I will take this one out of this format and put it into the Excel table so you guys can have it in that format. But I guess I don't know if you want me I can run through a real quick summary of what each one had and then take some questions. The police aspiration is built around 21st century policing. So, and this has been a foundation of the police department for a number of years. There's 6 pillars. So each one of the pillars became a goal. So they have 6 goals to go with the 6 pillars. And we went through and listed out all of their programs and things and then collapsed them into initiatives. So there's like a community outreach initiative. And a number of these, if you're new to reviewing them, you will see things such as the community outreach initiative will show up multiple times. And each one of these strategies is designed to implement that goal that's up here. This one happens to be building trust and legitimacy within the community, Montpelier community. So that's what these are about. Whether it's technology, whether it's outreach, whether it's bike and foot, whether it's the school outreach officer. And this repeats all the way through for the public safety, for the policing, basically, for each one of the 6 goals. Dispatch, really, I'm trying to remember how many goals they had, but a lot of theirs comes down to having certified staff. It's good staff, good facilities, and a reliable system. So they, I think, had 3 goals: expand the police station and improve the reliability of the dispatching center. And so again, these were collapsed into we used to have a lot of strategies, and we try to collapse strategies that are similar into different things. Like the Televate upgrade project is probably 5 or 6 different projects in one. I kept fire and EMS together, mostly because the fire and EMS are the same people in the same department. So even though really it's 2 separate jobs, putting out fires and doing ambulance, we kept them the same. Everyone who's a firefighter is getting trained for EMS and vice versa. So I think that was straightforward. Emergency management was really big, and emergency management is really big because it has there's a lot of things that we do to be proactive on emergency management. That includes disaster preparedness and emergency response. So that could be everything from a flood to a terrorist attack on the Capitol. So it's a wide range of stuff. So there's a lot of continuity of operations, getting the public ready, and all the different projects that are involved in there. Again, we've done a lot to try to combine them, but you can read through and just roll through and just see there's a lot of programs that we work on that are emergency management related. And I think that's actually it, just those. But there's a lot in the emergency management. So I will get those transferred over, but that is, in a really quick nutshell, that's what it has been discussed, other than restorative justice, which, as I said, we're working on.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yes, assuming people have had a chance to, review this in more detail, are there any questions, comments, suggestions for anything in this chapter?
I was going to ask, is the CAN network still? I'm new to town too. I'm new to the city too, so I didn't know if that's something that's still around or not. I heard it lost funding, or is it? I don't know if it still lives.
It's in many ways, from the city government standpoint, it doesn't really exist anymore. It was originally created, the capital area neighborhoods was created in about 2008 for developing the previous plan. And that was how they kind of did the master plan that we have today. What's called the master plan that we have today was developed by the developing neighborhood groups and writing the chapters based on what the public thought we should be doing. We've taken a different approach, but canned neighborhoods kept going in some ways. Those ones that were formed kind of tumbled along, kind of kept themselves going for a little while. And then about 2 years ago, really spurred on by COVID, there was an interest in trying to make sure we got more public outreach and started working with the neighborhoods. And so a group stepped up, the Sustainable Montpelier group stepped up and said they would be willing to host and take care of doing the outreach on everything if we gave them money. And so the council did vote to put in, I think, $40,000 or 20,000 for 6 months or 40,000 for a year or something like that to help fund, pay Sustainable Montpelier to do the organization on those. And then coming up to maybe this December, they said at the end of December, Sustainable Montpelier said they weren't going to keep doing that. And they were going to focus on other things. So there's really no funding and no organization to go with it. And so it's, in effect, there may be some canned neighborhood groups that are still organized, but they're not working directly with the city. We've tried to reach out to set things up, but I haven't been directly the person working on it, but I know there was some interest in trying to keep it going, but it didn't seem to be working. So we've just decided to not to do it within the city, but there may be some individual neighborhoods that are still staying organized for other reasons.
Okay.
Anyone else have something?
I have a question about the restorative justice section. What agency are those programs under?
We actually have a community justice center, and we have a director who does community justice. In a lot of other places, they're either done regionally or they're done by a separate group. I want to think, I live in Hardwick. I know we have community justice center in Hardwick, but it's not part of city government. It's a kind of a separate organization. Here in Montpelier, we have pulled community justice into, so everybody who is in the community justice, who works for the community justice center works for the city. So we're a little bit different in that, and that helps us get a much closer relationship between the police department and the CJC.
Okay. My other question was about just the topic heading, the public safety plan.
Mhm.
And this is just a suggestion because public safety is such a huge umbrella of things. You know, it could, back when I worked in transportation, it was safety and security. So we even broke out safety into the two different arms because they're not the same thing. But looking at this plan, it involves all of the agencies that work in public safety specifically, as opposed to, transportation or other areas that deal with public safety, but not as their exclusive purpose. So to avoid confusion, could we add something about how this is like the public safety agency plan as opposed to just a public safety plan? Because I feel like adding in that these are agencies within the government that are providing their plans kind of just makes the chapter clearer. And maybe it will be clearer once it's drafted.
Yeah, I mean, it can be whatever the planning commission wants. We've talked about it as a public safety. We've talked about it as public safety and justice, or public safety and community justice. Yeah, it is tough because it's emergency management. It's such a wide range. Unlike the other big chapter, which is community services, it's pretty clear everything under it is a community service, and and there may be some other community services that are in other chapters, but for the most part, those are the big community services. This one, I agree, and we can, which whatever the planning commission would like to have as the title of this one, it could be public safety, it could be justice, it could be public safety agencies.
What do we have thoughts about the suggestion for public safety agency or something else? Anybody have any thoughts? Is it would what do people generally think about making that change? Does it sound like a good idea to say public safety agency plan? I'm going to throw 2 cents in on one part of it. I don't think I like pulling out public safety and community justice apart from each other, because it suggests that community justice isn't an important part of public safety or something. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to like make an inference that minimizes restorative justice. But first things first. I mean, what do we think about public safety agency? And Maria, you said you would prefer that, right? Like that you think that would be better.
Yeah, I mean, just because when I got to like, especially at the police section, I was expecting something more focused on public safety, like break-ins, like actual concerns that I have as a member of the community. But it was really more about the operations of police,
it's kind of about what the police want.
Right. So it's like the needs of these public safety agencies rather than what's actually being done for us, I'm making this distinction. I'm not sure if anyone else cares or sees it.
I see it. I see your point, and I like it. I think the only thing that give me pause is are people going to be confused about what public safety agency plan means?
It's a lot of words.
Maybe agencies, plural, public safety agencies plan. And that does kind of more specifically get at what exactly it is. Just for purposes of moving on real quickly, informally, those in favor of changing it to public safety agencies plan, say aye. Aye.
Can I also have a public safety services plan? I don't know, maybe it's kind of splitting the baby a little more.
So I thought I saw Gabe mouth it, but I didn't hear from John and Aaron on that one.
Can you hear me, Kirby?
Yeah, I can hear you a little bit. It's a little low. Okay. Well, it looks like, I don't know, people are lukewarm. We can leave it for now, I think, and think about it. Let's think about it, and if people like the idea, we can come back around. Just moving on momentarily. Do we have any other questions or feedback about aspects of the plan? I have some things, but I was going to be patient, but if I'm not hearing anything else, I have a couple of things. Just things that came to mind looking at it. For both of these are under the police section. Under the CIT, the crisis intervention training section, I was wondering if that could even be expanded. So it's under training, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. So the goal there is maintain the current level of training for Montpelier Police Department officers and take up additional opportunities for training when they emerge, which is good. And then so there's the police officer training program, which is a kind of discrete thing. And then there's crisis intervention team program. And this says continue to train officers in CIT. The goal itself actually suggests that maybe there'll be other trainings to consider, but all we're doing is maintaining or continuing what we've got. So that's why I was thinking of expanding maybe the CIT strategy to say, something to the effect of, and consider or research, or maybe consider is the best word, and consider other training opportunities, something like that, just to imply that where I'm coming from is like more crisis intervention, the better we can get at that, I think the better. It's a major area for public safety that is just a huge part of what police do when they respond to calls. And I feel like, over time, it's not something that policing in general has focused enough on, which brings me to another thing, which is maybe a bigger question, which is also in this section. The possibility of Montpelier actually using social workers for this stuff, which I know is like a big area, big can of worms to possibly get into. But I don't know, what do people think about having a strategy here, or including in the strategy, consider the possibility of having full-time social workers do this kind of work. I don't know, what are people's reactions to us putting it in there and seeing what happens at city council?
Kirby, what is the current status of using social workers? I mean, I don't know any of the.
So my understanding is what's kind of done now is like the officers get some training in the CIT type thing, which is not nearly the same thing as like being an actual social worker, right? And then there's this program where they work with Washington County Mental Health for certain types of calls for social work type stuff. But this relationship, as I understand it, is sort of it's sporadic and it's not consistent. Like sometimes Washington County Mental Health will participate and help the police, but it's kind of when Washington County Mental Health has a chance, like when they're available and for calls that they feel comfortable with. It's not a foolproof situation. And I'm not even sure the current status of that partnership, but I'm assuming this is still used some. So that's what I understand is kind of what's done. So yeah, I think having something in the plan about having like a real long-term workable social worker type approach through the police department is very much worthwhile. It's just a matter of, do we feel comfortable as a planning commission talking about these things? Because I am fully aware of like what I'm talking about right now is like a little bit going outside our lane a bit.
I think it's outside our wheelhouse.
And I'm cautious of that.
I was just going to say, I feel like I don't know enough about it. If someone were to ask me like, why was this included? I cannot speak like very intelligently about it. And so all of that to say, I'm happy to go along with whatever the planning commission recommends, or other commissioners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks, guys. I mean, I have the, same thing. Like, I don't want to be going outside the lane, but because it's not planning policy per se, but it's a thing. Well, I'm gonna move on from that. Just to put that in, just throwing that one out there. Another question I had about the police section was about staffing, where the term full staffing was used. And that had to do, I think, with, yeah, it's right below. And I think that this goal is something to do with retention. If you could scroll up a little bit, Mike, so we can see the goal for this, for the context. It's like emotional support and work-life balance to officers, and then there's police staffing level policy. And I thought that the strategy to reach and maintain full staffing to ensure the department has enough officers, that's a subjective phrase in my mind. Like, what is full staffing? Because that goes to how much police presence we're going to have in the city. And the way it's phrased is kind of objectively like there's a number that we know. But so I don't know. That's something that I wasn't super comfortable with. I feel like if we're going to talk about staffing as it relates to emotional support or work-life balance for officers, then there's issues like decreasing the number of police that we have on shift, or decreasing the workloads, via responses to calls and things like that. And yeah, I don't know. I don't need to dwell on that one either, but that was another one that stood out to me.
Well, Kirby, what is like the appropriate avenue in which to push back on some of this stuff?
I don't know. It's tricky for us. I mean, because we're supposed to be offering, planning commission's take on these things, and our, policies go to like land use type issues. So it is kind of out of our wheelhouse, but then again, it's also part of the city plan. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a weird chapter because it doesn't obviously relate.
Mike, do you maybe want to just back up for a second and tell us the process by which these goals were gotten to? Because my understanding is we had, outside people come in and make some recommendations, and there's boards, and there's, people have really thought about this who've looked at it for a while before it's come to us. Can you just talk about that a bit?
So for the way I developed this was to work with Brian Pete before he left, and Eric, the new chief, when he came on board. So the primary approach was to work with them, but they've been working on this. And, as we said, the focus, we could have focused, and we can, arrange this chapter to focus on safety itself. And they kind of looked at it from the standpoint of having a good police system is how we're going to end up getting good results, because it's more than just reducing crime. It's also about all of these other objectives that people have for their police departments. And so, and one of the pillars, as we said, we're focusing on 21st century policing, which was an Obama initiative, focused on how to rebuild trust with community, how to engage with the community. And one of the pillars, using this one as an example, is to provide emotional support, work-life balance for officers. And that a lot of that comes down to officers that it's better for the officers, and it's better for the community. When you have officers that work and show up and they're tired, and that's when accidents happen, that's when mistakes happen, that's when things happen, is when officers don't have that opportunity to have that time off. And so we do have a full staffing for Montpelier's police department is 17 officers. That includes the police chief. We have a working police chief. We don't have an administrative police chief. So it's 17 officers is full. And the reason for that is it allows for a schedule that can be fully built out, allowing everybody to work regular shifts and still have time for everybody to have time off to go and take vacations. So there's not going to be 16 officers on at one time. There may only be 3 or 4. And what it allows for is people to go to training. Every time somebody goes to training, you need to have somebody come in. So that means somebody coming in on overtime or somebody coming in on not being able to go on vacation because somebody else is going on training. When we're fully staffed, people can go to training and we're not calling people in off on their vacations or their days off. That's why they want the fully staffed, is it allows the department to operate and give people their time off, their time to spend with their families, their time to decompress. It's a very stressful job. So that's why they emphasize the staffing policy so much, is they really wanted to make sure that council and the public understands the value of the fully staffed department. It's not just to have more officers. It's not to have more on the street. It's actually not adding any more people on the street. It's just giving people time off. You're going to have the same number of people if you have 14 as you would having 17, except that those 14 don't get vacations and they don't get time off, and they're getting called in a lot. So that's that's what the 17 officers, and that's why the fully staffing, and that's why it's so important to them. And they like to make sure that conversation comes up with city council, because it's always an easy place to cut when it comes time for budgets. So that's why they're always like, that's why they want to emphasize the need for that full staffing. So that's a little bit of the answer to that specific question. But a big picture, how this all came together is to working primarily through the police department. There was a review when Brian Pete came in. The first thing he did was do a full evaluation of everything, of all the departments, of all the things, and wrote a report. Then there was a police review committee that came in, reviewed things, and made some recommendations. That also was incorporated into the next plans going forward, including this plan. So we've reviewed a number of pieces to kind of to build this together as to how to move forward on the 6 pillars. And that's, as I said, that's why it's focused as an aspiration and goals on the 6 pillars, as opposed to, say, having a public safety goal of let's reduce crime or let's do this. It's more focused on an agency plan, and I think that's a good analysis. It's public safety agency plan, because it's getting the agency. This is how to operate this one to get the best results for the community.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I'm comfortable like letting some of these little criticisms go. I mean, I do want to make a note though that to rebut the full staffing thing real quick. 17 officers. East Montpelier has 0 police officers, so their full staffing is 0. Like the 17 number is still a policy judgment of this is how much police force we're going to have. It's not about training. I mean, they could have fewer people at a time on shifts. So they're still like can just do less, have less presence. So I just want to throw that out there. But I do think it's probably appropriate to leave it to like the public review process. And maybe that's what we say about this chapter. And it sounds like people would be comfortable with us saying, you know what, we're not really going to touch this with a very heavy hand at all, because this is maybe outside our wheelhouse, and just let city council know that that's the review process done by the planning commission for this one, aside from changing it to public safety agency plan. Are people comfortable with that approach for this one?
Are we annexing East Montpelier? That's how you know if like the press is watching these.
Are we annexing?
It's certainly a policy question. Whether we have or need a police department at all it's a policy in a personal community decision as to what level and what amount of service you need. I mean, I live in Hardwick. I have a police department, but everybody around the communities around us, I pay more in taxes in order to have a police department. But a couple miles down the road is Walden or Greensboro or Woodbury, none of which have police departments. And so if there's a response, they have to wait for the state police. So if there's a shooting at their house, they got to wait for the state police to come in from Middlesex. And that's a policy decision that communities make. Montpelier has decided to have one, and the level of service that's been requested has been this. Now we could go to having less service. That's a decision for the public.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm completely aware that I'm like on a bit of a soapbox about this, and so letting that go and letting the public respond to what they think of the plan, I think is probably the most appropriate thing, without planning commission trying to put its 2 cents in, because it's outside of our wheelhouse. But I think that would be the comments we want to pass along to city council on this one. So if everybody's okay with that, we can do that. But before we totally move on from the review of this, I'd like to check back in. Just a straw poll vote. If you would be in favor of changing the title, say yay now. Yay.
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 Changing it to what?
Just well, probably to public safety agency plan instead of public safety plan.
Or,
And if you don't-
or services, public safety services.
Or public safety services.
Make it clear that it's their plan, not necessarily,
So
like
if
reducing crime or something more.
so my question is just like, is there any iteration which you would like to change it? If so, say yay. Okay, so those who don't think that a change is needed, say nay right now. So did we have 4 yays before? Sounded like we did.
Yep, probably.
Okay. So, okay, that was just a straw poll thing. So to see if it was worth a motion. Do we have a motion to change it? And if someone does have a motion, propose what we would change it to in your motion.
So can I don't know the exact terminology here.
You say I move that we change the title for this chapter to.
Okay. I move that we change the title of this chapter to Public Safety Services Plan. Or I'm sorry. I have to go back and look at the.
Okay. So your motion is to change it to Public Safety Services Plan.
Right.
Do we have a second to Maria's motion?
I second.
Okay, so we have a second from Gabe. So now we can have a discussion. Would anyone like to discuss this further before we move to a vote?
Yeah, I never would have picked that up until Maria brought it up, but it's right. We're not talking about our end state, what we want to see Montpelier in terms of our safety, right? This is really the executives of these departments and the things that they feel that they need to provide the services. So I think it's how important is it? I don't know, but I think it is a useful distinction.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to discuss about it? Okay, gonna move on to the vote. Those in favor of Maria's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those not in favor, say nay. Okay. And any abstentions?
Me.
Okay, so Aaron abstains. So that was a 401 vote to change the title of the chapter. Okay, and based on our discussion, I don't think we have any more changes that we want to make. And so we're good for now, Mike. And assuming you're going to put it into the Excel spreadsheet and all that, but since I don't know, we don't even really need to see that. That's just going to be for purposes for the to put on the website. Okay. Mike, do you want us to go back and look at this again when restorative justice is done?
Probably don't need to. I mean, I'll let you know when it's done so you guys can look at it if you feel like it, we can bring it up. I mean, all these chapters, everything we approve is going to end up on the website and we're going to end up looking at it a second time. So, but I can let you know.
Okay. Okay. That's I'm comfortable with that. Is everybody comfortable with that? Just we know that we didn't review everything at this point because restorative justice wasn't done. But the Community Justice Center will be developing that more fully in the near future. Okay. Well, if we don't have anything else for this, I'm going to move on our agenda. We only have 30 minutes left, but we do have the CNU ARP recommendations issue next. We had left this off last week with Gabe having the suggestion that we look at the design review district boundaries as a possibility to start with for if we want to start phasing out zoning caps. It's like, Mike, are you able to pull up those district boundaries?
Yeah, it'll just give me a second.
Okay. Yeah, that might be the best way to go about that. And then we'll take a look at what that boundary is. And then Mike can also show us on that map where, the three urban core zoning districts or zoning neighborhoods are all, they already don't have a cap, and they're going to be in that design review district, I assume. So we'll be looking at the other places that could be impacted. And then the discussion will be about, do we phase out over time? Do we phase out based on geography? It's just a lot of policy possibilities. And Mike, you can tell us your thoughts too. And does anybody need catching up about this discussion? This is us taking up that Congress for New Urbanism report from last year about the suggestions. We kind of went through all of those suggestions last week and sort of summarized like where we were on those. And then as far as things that we can take action on, one of the biggest was the suggestion for Montpelier to get rid of its using density and in its zoning. Okay.
So
That's what we're looking at.
the dark black line is the design review. So the areas right now, just so everyone kind of gets a little bit of an update, these dark red areas in here are Urban Center 1. Just to orient people, this is the downtown. The little hatch lines you see here is the Capitol complex. So the Capitol is sitting right where the little hand is. Here's the intersection of State and Main, City Hall, Barry, Shaw's. This is Memorial Drive out to the highway. So this area already does not have, this dark red does not have any density requirements. And the same is true for this area of Barry Street. This goes out to about Hubbard Street, and includes like Sarducci's over on the Stonecutters Way. And then if you start going out Main Street, you get to Urban Center 3, which is out to the roundabout. So all these areas currently do not have any density requirements. It is whatever the number of units you can fit into those areas. So when we have this discussion with CNU about removing density, we already have some places that do it. The conversation we had last year, probably about this time last year was about trying to expand that district just a little bit to go through and say, maybe we could get residential 1500 to also not have that requirement. And I think, I hate to move to go and find the thing. I think this is Res 1500, the light green. And the concern, a little bit that I had, a little bit the city council had, was the fact that not all of it is in design review. So you can see some of it is in design review, some of it is not in design review. And so they felt what Congress for New Urbanism was saying was you need to have robust design regulations if you're going to remove density requirements, because, you know, and there are arguments for and against that. But that was the thought, was we could, you know, for some of those. So the theory or the idea now is, rather than tagging it to a density, this was the next highest density. These have high density. 1500 is 1 unit per 1500 square feet of land, which is 27 units an acre. So that's a fairly decent density of development. So that's what the light green, I think, is. And then the other idea would be that if you just used the design review district and said, if you're in design review, then we could remove the density. Now, some of these are varying different amounts of density. So, you know, that's 1500. This is 3000. That's 3000. There's a little touch of blue up here, which is res 9000. And this was a little bit of the area that I was talking about last time, that I thought these are some of the areas that might be difficult, or where people are going to make some comments. And I think even Brian may have mentioned that he lives out here. This is out Terrace Street and Bailey. So this is Bailey Terrace. This is Route 2 on its way heading out. So this is mixed use. Probably isn't a big deal, as big of a deal. That's, you know, 1 unit per 3000 right now. But this is 1 unit per 6,000. So this is getting a little bit more residential. So I think these are the ones that would be the case that people would come up to push back on, is this is a residential lower density district, but it's in design review. And the reason it's in design review is because it's all in the historic district. We matched our design review line in this area to the historic district line. So everything inside is in the historic district. So that's why that line is where it is. So that's that I was just pointing out as a piece of fact. Some of these probably won't make a big difference. This is Berry Street. This is a relatively high density area. This is Northfield Street. You'll probably get some maybe pushback from neighbors surrounding it to go and remove the density from the Econo Lodge property. And then obviously the big massive area of National Life, but I don't think much is going to happen at National Life. I don't really think that's an issue. If we remove density from National Life, I don't think it'll have an impact. But those are just some of the facts, and then I guess I'll open it up to folks. And this is the college campus up here. We can include or not include that. That's the VCFA campus.
Do we have questions for Mike about this? So Mike, I think one threshold question is, do you think that our design review process as it stands is strong enough to, you know, safeguard appearances so that doing away with the density cap is not an issue? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, I know John has pointed out a number of times that, and I can't say he's wrong on it, that it hasn't happened and probably isn't going to happen. My issue is when I have to come in and I get put in a position of having to make a staff recommendation based on whether we have enough safeguards in place to make sure it can't happen. And I don't think we have enough safeguards in place to mean that it can't happen. In the design review, I think we're fairly safe. Outside of the design review district, we have a lot of rules. It's not like it's a free wheeling design whatever with somebody's outside of this design review district. We have rules to regulate design, but when push comes to shove and we have folks, and they've been very vocal to come out and make a push that says, do we have safeguards to make sure it can't happen? I don't think our rules are tight enough that we can make it that it can't happen.
And when you say it can't happen, the it is a development occurs that the neighbors are unhappy about?
They'll usually bring out some extreme cases to go through and say, somebody could come in and do X. They could come in and tear this building down and put in another building in its place that's, and for some reason it's 4 stories and it has flat roof, or 3 stories and it has a flat roof. For some reason, some people have a real thing with having flat roofs. But it's a thing that routinely comes up. And so in some cases, I think we've got a lot of good rules, but we don't have strong enough rules that if somebody really wanted to, and the truth is most people haven't, and the economics aren't there. And, I'm sure John could go and speak to that too. The economics just aren't there to go and buy these things and to do those types of deals. But if somebody came in with enough money, could they really go and screw up a neighborhood? Yeah, they probably could. If they had enough money and really had their mind set on it, they probably could. But it probably wouldn't happen.
Let me ask a question at 10-4, because I think what we're talking about, you're going to have those people are going to show up and they're going to say the things that they say at all of them, right? On the positive side, let's just say, what would we be trying to accomplish? So 10-4, let's look at 10-4. There's a lot of big, beautiful Victorian homes, right? What is it currently now? 6,000?
Yep, 1 unit per 6,000.
Okay, I'm sure some of those homes, let's say one of these homes could be converted into efficiencies and you could have 8 units or something. Would that be allowable today?
The way it would work today, and I guess maybe that's helpful for everybody to understand how the system works today. I'll just zoom in here. So probably, let's go and say where my little hand is here. That's probably about a 6,000 square foot lot.
Yeah.
So if they had a 6,000 square foot lot, the most that person could do at their house would be a duplex. They've got the right to have a single family house because they've got the 6,000 square feet. And because of the rules we have in place, anyone with a single family home, anyone with a parcel big enough for a single family home is also allowed to have a duplex. And I understand the state is actually looking at duplicating our rule and requiring it statewide. So that's what the limit would be right now. They could only have the 2 units.
I mean, if we look at conversion of housing, some of these areas inside of the design review, and they could be beautiful. They could be, like all you got to do is travel. You go to Boston or Newburyport or Portsmouth. They've maintained these homes. They protect the homes. They're gorgeous, right? But you have multiple people able to live in them and therefore make it affordable to maintain. And based on the conversation, the data, I don't know if you have data or it's anecdotal, Mike, but it sounds like the biggest need is for single individual households, right? That's the biggest housing demand that we're not meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguable as to, how many bedrooms, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, but, as we said, most people right now, 40% of our population are people living alone. And, we don't have that many studios and 1 bedrooms. And now with people working from home, maybe a single person would want a 2 bedroom. But again, we're looking at much smaller units compared to the past when, you'd have much larger families. We had average household size, I think, was close to 5 in the 1950s, and now we're less than 2.
So Mike, did I hear you say that you did feel comfortable saying that not having a density cap within the design review district is something you could say is you don't think that development that people are scared about could happen, like that you were comfortable with that? Okay.
I think we have enough. Our design review regulations have been in place since we made changes to them obviously a couple of years ago, but that really was to clarify and to refine them and make them much better. We've had them in place for almost 50 years, and I think if we were to look within, let me zoom back out. If we were to think about these areas in here, the boundary hasn't changed much in 50 years. It's a little bit. 50 years ago, National Life wasn't in it, but we added that in the late 70s, early 80s. But for the most part, the boundaries stayed pretty consistent. And I don't think we've had development within this box that has been anything that we would go through and say, boy, that should never have happened. And these areas in here don't have density requirements already. And the sky hasn't fallen. Nothing bad has happened. So I think certainly within the design review district, I think the only policy thing that would be a drawback from our standpoint is when we try to cross that line, we're going to make it harder for us to try to cross that line in the future. I don't know if people follow what I'm saying. Once we've pegged it to if it's in the design review, then we don't have a density requirement. It might be more difficult to cross that line. But
what if we? I have no idea where we're going to go with this. So this is, I'm throwing stuff out there as like guesses. But what if there was a proposal, something like no density caps within design review district? Maybe it's phased in, maybe it's not, whatever. And also at the same time, increase the density caps by 1 step for all of the neighborhoods touching. So with the idea of by increasing them by 1 step for the neighborhoods that are touching the line, it is looking ahead a little bit to the concern that the line is going to become a permanent Chinese wall or whatever for density. You know what I mean? So a different kind of phasing out, instead of when you hit that design review line, it goes from because some of these neighborhoods, are I don't know what Res 6000 or even requires even more land per unit. So it would be a cliff. What I'm saying is you would go from you can't have much units here at all to your neighbor can have as many units as they want. So instead of having that cliff, maybe we phase it out geographically too. I don't know.
Or what if we just raise that minimum allowable, like if we say 4 units allowed anywhere, right? There's no, you get away from focusing on the area and those calculations, and it's just if it's a lot, you can put 4 units there, doesn't matter. You're gonna still bound by the other dimensional requirements and things, but that simplifies it. It gets away from the those small lots where people are doing this impossible math of someone could put 600 units here, and it's well, it's not going to happen. But now at least if it's just like 4 units, it's 4 units. Anyone could convert a unit a structure to 4 units. I don't know.
Right. And so the 4 units thing was that was a different CNU suggestion, right?
It
Wasn't
was
that
for,
part of it?
there was a CNU recommendation. I think that one was tied to site plan, exempting site plan up to 4.
Okay. And so
I
we're
don't
talking
think
about 4 as
yeah, I
being
don't think
a
that one's,
allowable use.
I was just gonna say, I don't think that one matters quite as much because we now do administrative site plans, so we can still do the site plan requirements. It doesn't have to go to a DRB hearing. We do it administratively, and it's not. I don't think we need to do that one necessarily because there's a lot of value in doing the site plan requirements. But because we're doing administratively, it doesn't add any more time or much expense.
So I like the suggestion, John. There is one issue for me that I would really like, and maybe this is just me being way too hopeful. One reason why I'd like to see us move away from density is just that it's so unhelpful, period, for no matter where you are. Because when these discussions happen, people fixate on density and to the point of that they're not even getting whatever change is being proposed really, because they're just fixating on the density thing. And I don't know. I think that's like a factor there is like, do we want to come up with something here that is incrementally moving towards Montpelier just not using density anymore? Or are we just going to look for a solution that's more practical in that we're just going to lighten things up in the ways that we can get away with? You know what I mean? I think that's something for us to think about. We're running out of time right now, so obviously we're not going to be solving anything tonight, but I think this was hugely helpful. Maybe with that, I'll just say that when we take this up again, if people could keep thinking about it and thinking about what makes sense for a change, and you know, Mike, I'm very conscientious of like what you're comfortable with and what you feel comfortable telling city council, because I don't want us to have to come up with something that you're not comfortable with. I really think that this is a possibly big paradigm shift for the city that's really important for housing and planning. So I want to make sure that we come as a united front. So if we can all just think about this, it looks like this was a great place to start. So thank you, Gabe, for suggesting this is a place to start.
Yeah, I'll just say too, and I'm sure people have all seen it, but if you pay attention to the discussion that's going on in the legislature, I mean, there's really powerful things, you know, being talked about as it relates to, you know, equity and social justice and, you know, how discriminatory this really is. And so I think, you know, we'd all be, you know, paying attention to those discussions and debates. I don't think they're going to go as far as the 4 plexes. I think that's for another day, you know, but maybe we could go that far. But I think, you know, being able to combat some of the dialogue that we know will come up in a city council meeting, it's important to really dial in and pay attention. They're good discussions anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. So yeah, that's what we should do before we take this up again. I'm not positive that it's going to shake out for the next meeting, but it might. We you know, there's a good chance we'll be talking about this again at the next meeting. So if everybody can spend the next couple of weeks thinking about, you know, how we would like to evolve this density question and come with some concrete ideas for us to start seriously considering, I think that's going to be really helpful. And I think I could just leave it at that. Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I might just jump in just to go and give a little bit of background. So the Congress for New Urbanism, for some of the folks who are new, is, you know, it's an organization, and they have a way of doing their zoning where it's what are called form-based codes. And so it really, some communities have done it. Winooski is probably the biggest one that's done it, where you basically, we don't regulate use, we just regulate what the buildings look like. And fundamentally, it's a really good way of doing things. It's just a fundamental shift in how you do things. And that's, for us to have, 80 years of zoning under our belt in one way, and now it would require a fundamental shift in how we do our zoning. And so that's kind of where they would want us to go, is to kind of get into more design, don't care about the use, set the bulk and the massing and how you want things to look. And it's a very visual, the regulations are very visual. You have to have this, you can't have this. And so it's a different way of doing things, and it works very, very well. But we don't have those rules, and it would take a lot of work for us to kind of develop those rules. So there's a question of timing. Do we go forward and adopt an adjusted form-based code, which would probably take 3 or 4 years to put together? Or do we just keep this incremental approach that we're doing and keep loosening the belt and see how things go? And that, I think, is some of the policy questions. And there are people, we've had these public hearings. This is not the first time we proposed to do things. We had proposed to expand the historic design review district. This design review district had been proposed to kind of follow that green, yellow, and then out to the brown line here. So this whole area would have been in the design review district, and the opposition was tremendous for the idea of expanding that. It's everything that's within the National Register district would have been within the design review district, and it was really strongly opposed and almost brought down the zoning update. So we've been doing this. We've run into this same group of people over and over again, and they're well organized, or they can be at the last second. And so it's mostly this argument's about, it's a political discussion and what people want or don't want. And so, that's been the trick of getting a hold and figuring out how to make these changes. So, and I will stop sharing. So I know we've got 2 seconds left. The committee stipends link you guys have, I'll just go and mention that really quick. I didn't want to have a discussion on this. I just wanted to mention that City Council had passed a resolution, or put money behind a project that they wanted to make sure that people, this came out of CJAC, Social and Equity Committee. Folks can't always volunteer to be on committees because they can't afford the childcare, or they can't afford to go. So there is a program with stipends. If you go on the link, it'll tell you all about it. If there's somebody who, even if it's to be virtual, if there's a reason why you need some financial assistance to attend the meetings, you're welcome to apply for them. Just let me know, and we can. I think I have to file the monthly stipend for you, because I need to go and sign off that you actually attended the meeting. So if you're in that position and would like to go and participate, look at the criteria, look at what's in there, and get in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks. Yeah, glad to get the word out there about that. So check it out if you think you might qualify, or something you're interested in. Okay, everybody, we're out of time. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Motion from Gabe. Do we have a second? Second from John. Thanks.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you.